Hi everyone, this is Courtney with Texas Teacher Today. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the 5 C's because that's something that almost everybody is concerned about. So the 5 C's will appear on the pedagogy, instruction, and assessment multiple choice questions, and they'll often ask you which of the 5 C's something applies to. So if you take my digital course, you'll learn a lot about the 5 C's, but we're going to go through some of it right now. That way you can learn as we go. So one really good thing to do is pull up the Texas NESINC manual. Just go to Google and type in Texas NESINC, click on prepare, and then scroll down and go to LOTE Spanish 613. And then I'll show you where to find the 5 C's chart, because in my course I have the 5 C's chart, but it's changed a little bit because it's copyrighted. So I want to show you the exact one that you'll have on your test. So you just click on number 8, and this has sample pedagogy questions that you can check out. And then the 5 C's chart is right here. So communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities. Some of them are really straightforward and easy to understand, and some are pretty confusing. So let's go through them, and then I'll look at some questions with you guys. Okay, so communication, there's 3 standards. Number 1 is what's called interpersonal communication. It's all about conversations, providing and obtaining information, expressing feelings and emotions, and exchanging opinions. It's the only communication listed here that's two-way, meaning there's back and forth. There's an exchange between people. So it could be 2 people talking, it could be a small group talking, or a large group talking, as long as everybody's participating. 1.2 is what's called interpretive communication. Students understand and interpret written and spoken language on a variety of topics. Standard 1.3 is presentational communication, what it sounds like, them making a presentation to an audience of listeners. So again, only 1.1 is two-way communication. Next we have cultures. Cultures is the most confusing one, because it's not what we usually think of about cultures. So let's look at 2.1. Students demonstrate an understanding of the relationship between the practices and perspectives of the culture studied. Practices are things people do, like they practice an instrument, a sport, a religion. Perspective is your mindset, your point of view, your beliefs. So it's all about knowing how your beliefs are related to your practices. Okay, so for example, if you're into saving the earth, right? If you're an environmentalist, you're probably going to recycle. You might even compost, things like that. Your perspective will affect your practice. There are cultural things. For example, in much of Latin America and Spain, people have traditionally been Catholic. That's their perspective. Their practice would be going to Mass. That's one example, right? They're not all going to be religious, of course. Another example would be that family time in southern Spain is super important. So what do? They all go home and have lunch as a family. Almost everybody does. So they have that built into their workday where they have a break. All right, standard 2.2, students demonstrate an understanding of the relationship between the products and perspectives of the culture study. So what you believe, what you prefer, what you think affects what you buy. Okay, so again, if you're an environmentalist, you're probably going to buy a car that has good gas mileage, or you might not even buy a car. You might buy a bicycle. Okay, going back to the Catholic thing, if you're a Catholic, Latin America and Spain has a lot of Catholic people, or at least in the past has, they would maybe buy a crucifix. Okay, that would be the product that they buy. Connections. All right, 3.1. Students reinforce and further their knowledge of other disciplines through the foreign language. That means they study another subject in Spanish. So maybe they're studying calculus in Spanish. Okay, 3.2. Students acquire information and recognize the distinctive viewpoints that are only available through the foreign language and its cultures. So they might study a political movement from a specific part of Latin America or Spain, and those viewpoints would be distinctive to that culture. Okay, comparisons. These are straightforward. 4.1 is comparing L1 and L2, language 1 and language 2. 4.2 is comparing somebody's own culture to the target language cultures. So comparisons is very straightforward. 5.1 and 5.2 are also pretty easy. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish between them, but just be careful, because on a lot of the questions it will say select all that apply. So students use the language both within and beyond the school setting. So they use it outside of school and, of course, in school. 5.2, students show evidence of becoming lifelong learners by using the language for personal enjoyment and enrichment. So it's great to go through these questions and get the answers, but I'll show you a couple in my course too. So here's a little quiz for the 5 C's that I made. A Spanish 4 student is studying economics and he decides to also read about supply and demand and scarcity of resources in Spanish. The Spanish teacher asks him to present what he has learned to this class in Spanish. Which of the standards does this address? So he's going to be presenting. I remember that that's presentational communication, which is 1.3. So definitely it's 1.3. I have it as 1.C here because, again, it's copyrighted. Okay, now he's studying another subject in Spanish. Remember, that was connections. He's studying another subject, another discipline in Spanish. So that's 3.1. So I'm going to select 3.A. Okay, he's doing this on his own, right? So it would also be the 5.2 because he's showing evidence of being a lifelong learner, but that's not an option here. So let's just look at our other options to make sure that none of them are right. 3.2, distinctive viewpoints that are only available through the foreign language, that's not distinct, so it's not 3.2. 5.2, oh, we do have 5.2 on there. I didn't see that one till now. That's why you always look at all of them. They show evidence of becoming lifelong learners by using the language for personal enjoyment. It is 5.2. 5.B, we already said it was 1.C, presentational. Let's look at 4.A, 4.1. Comparing the language in their own. No, he's not comparing the language. So it's going to be B, C, and D. So if you take my course, you'll get lots of questions and chances to practice this. Let's look at this one. Which of the following best represents how students can meet the culture standard? So remember, cultures is all about products and perspectives and practices and perspectives. So they could research a Spanish-speaking country of their choice, read about traditions and holidays, and present. That sounds like cultures, but again, we're looking for practices and perspectives or products and perspectives. They could compare a holiday from one of the target cultures to an American holiday. That would be comparisons, so it's not that one. They could select a common household item in a Spanish-speaking country and explain how the item is related to that culture's beliefs. See how that's a product and perspectives, their beliefs. So C is correct. But let's always look at all options. They could take students on a field trip to a local museum on Hispanic heritage. It sounds like cultures, but it's not about practices and perspectives or products and perspectives. So if you take my course, you'll get lots of sample questions, lots of information, and my comprehensive course has material for all domains. So for domain 1, which is the instruction and assessment, domain 2, on cultural understanding, there's some links to go over. There's not a lot on cultural understanding because that's the smallest part of the test. And then you have interpretive listening, interpretive reading, and written expression, and oral expression. And this course is unique because you can even upload assignments and get feedback from me on how to improve. So hope that answers some of your questions about the 5 C's, and I look forward to hopefully helping you pass the LOTE. My website is lotespanish.us.